The Niche Zero grinder has become an internet favorite, but after a year of usage, I found that the zero retention claim isn't entirely accurate, and there are a few roadblocks that can get in your way. Here are my top 5 tips for using the Niche Zero, and we'll start with number 1, all about retention. So let's see how little retention my zero retention grinder actually has. So that is my tip number 1, is make sure you do give this guy a little tap, particularly the next day when you're using it for the first time in the morning, because any of the static charge of some of the grounds that were still clinging on will still be there. Those are day-old coffee grounds I don't want in my drink. Now, the same issues of static apply to the dosing cup. When I add my beans and grind, I find that after moving the coffee grinds from the dosing cup to the portafilter, I have some grinds left behind in the cup. Let's get rid of those. Yeah, this is not clean at all. It's left quite a lot in here. Let me show you how to do this and leave really no coffee grinds at all. Now, you've probably heard that spritzing the beans with a little bit of water can help reduce static. But if you spritz the beans directly in the cup here, then the cup will retain a little bit of moisture, and then when you try to remove the ground coffee out of here, it's going to stick to the moisture. So what I like to do is to remove the beans from the cup to a second vessel. I just use my portafilter and then spritz from here. I have this little spritz bottle and it's just filled with distilled water. 1 spritz is plenty. Just give that little shake to distribute the moisture, put it in. Now let's grind. The other place you could spritz, by the way, is directly in here, but again that has the same problem where you'll end up with beans that are a little bit moist as they're trying to get sucked in, and what will happen is they just get stuck here, so you have to keep opening this up, pushing them in, and then resuming. So that's why I like to use an additional vessel, and I'm using this portafilter anyway. Now that alone will get you most of the way there, but not entirely to a clean cup. There's one extra step, and that is to use a WDT tool directly in the dosage cup. And what I found is this, just give this a quick stir and it just helps reduce the static in the dosing cup. Okay, moment of truth. Let's put this into the portafilter. See what we get. Maybe a couple of grounds in there. It's much cleaner. A fantastic job. Now the next tip, tip number 3, it's in the manual, but this is important to know if you switch between different grind sizes. So the way that you adjust the grind is very easy. I mean, there's just a little indent here, and you just set that to whatever number you want to set that to. And when I'm going between espresso and pour over, it means I need to move from this section here over to this filter drip section here. So as I'm moving coarser, no problem, I can just turn this as much as I want. But when I go from coarser to finer, I need to be concerned about any of the coffee grounds that may still be in here and those blocking the burrs as we move them closer together. So what the recommendation is when we go coarser to finer, every 10 clicks we stop and just run the grinder. So I'm here around 35. If I move to around 25, just run it just for a second, lift the lid. You can actually leave this turned on because lifting the lid will turn it off anyway, and then move it down to the next set of 10. Do that, and that way we can be sure that we're not going to have any problems with the burrs. And probably in this dosing cup there's going to be a little bit of coffee, tiny amount of coffee in here. Now this one had me scratching my head, and at one point made me think that my Niche Zero was broken after I'd taken it apart and cleaned it. But it wasn't. You just need to know this. There's really not much maintenance when it comes to this, but when you do take this apart to clean it, you've got this guard here. So when I removed that and put it back on, I had a real problem with the performance of this. It was super slow. It was taking forever to grind the beans, and I really couldn't figure out why that was. Well, that was because when I reassembled it, the hole here where the beans fall through wasn't well aligned. So you can see the beans there are going to get blocked as they go in just because of the burrs. If I align it this way, now they have a clear entry point, and that was what was slowing down my niche. Okay, final tip. The niche zero will lose calibration over time. Fortunately, recalibration is a breeze. I think I've calibrated this maybe twice in the year that I've had it, but it's worth knowing how to do it because it will lose calibration over time. So we're going to move this little dot, where is it? Here, all the way to the calibrate section, or as far over as we can get it. I am moving finer rather than coarser to do that, so I like to do this in those 10-step increments just to make sure I'm not getting any coffee grounds stuck in those burrs as I'm tightening. So you can see here that the little dot does not line up with calibrate. So you can see I'm not actually properly calibrated. So now I'm going to just turn the black part here, click it until I am at calibrate. About there. There we go. And then from there, I can now grab the top here again and just turn this to whatever setting that is I'm looking for, knowing that I've now got a calibrated system. So those are my 5 tips. I really like this grinder. I've had it for about a year. I've been trying other grinders in the meantime. This is still my favorite. But what about you? Do you have any tips for usage? If so, let me know in the comments.